TGIF, everybody, and a good Friday to all the racing fans out there as we get closer and closer to the 40th Breeders' Cup Championships. And Jeff Siegel joins me, Jeremy Plonk here with First Bet and Express Bet to handicap some stakes races as we gear up towards the Breeders' Cup. We've got some good action, Jeff, from Harness, Breeders' Crown eliminations this weekend to Worldwide, the Kipco Champions Day, British Champions Day at Ascot, to racing at Keeneland and Santa Anita, and even my old backyard at Remington Park. It's Oklahoma Classics night tonight on Friday as we record the podcast. So some cool racing out there as we gear up to the big one.
Yeah, I'm going to lean on you for Remington. That's your old stomping ground. You know what's going on there better than anybody. Good racing at Gulfstream for 2-year-olds. Interested in that. Keeneland's got some good races as well. Got a stake out here at Santa Anita tomorrow for 2-year-old fillies. So there's plenty of opportunities to make money as we try to build our bankroll. And I hesitate to say that because whether or not I have a bankroll or not, I'm going to be playing the Breeders' Cup. So, it would be nice to have money that I've got in my pocket. And that's what we're going to try to do this weekend and the next couple of weekends prior to the Breeders' Cup. But I still think there's some good gambling opportunities this week. So why not take advantage of them?
It's always better to bet with winnings.
Yes,
that is a recipe that we can all agree upon. So good luck to those of you playing this weekend. We're going to handicap 8 stakes races here on this particular podcast. For the benefit of those of you on YouTube and Twitter, here's a look at the schedule. And for those of you listening at our audio podcast channels, we're going to start things out at Remington Park with the Oklahoma Classics Cup headliner on a 10 stakes Oklahoma bred stakes card tonight. Then Saturday, we'll go to Gulfstream Park for the Florida Sire Stakes, the Susan's Girl for the 2-year-old fillies, the Gil Campbell Memorial for older horses in between, and then we'll wrap it up with the Affirmed for the 2-year-old colts in that Florida Sire Stakes division. At Santa Anita, the Anokia Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies. At Keeneland, we've got 3-year-old sprinters in the spotlight in sister-brother races here, the Perryville for the colts and the Raven Run for the fillies. And then on Keeneland's Sunday card, it'll feature the Dowager Stakes for distaffers going the marathon distance on the turf course. So a lot to look forward to this weekend, and want to remind you that when you play that new Turf Pick 3 at Keeneland, you can get a 10% winnings boost when you play the Turf Pick 3 at Santa Anita. So hit that, and anything you win, you add 10% to your winnings. Keeneland Turf Pick 3 today, or I should say the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, but the Santa Anita Turf Pick 3 also today. Santa Anita's card for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the 3-day race week. All right, Jeff Siegel, let's get handicapping here on the weekend, and we start with Friday night. And you mentioned Oklahoma Classics Day at Remington Park. I used to be a television commentator there. I was a chart caller for Equibase there. I covered the very first Oklahoma Classics as a collegiate reporter, now in the 31st year for the Oklahoma Classics. And the big card tonight begins at just after 7 o'clock Eastern. I've got my reasons to Remington that I put out each week on social media. Let's take a look at that video, about 2 minutes there. It's going to preview the primetime pick 4 races, which are the final 4 races on the card tonight. And then you and I will come back and talk about the Classics Cup. Hi again, everybody. Jeremy Plonk with Horse Player Now with this week's Reasons to Remington. It's an Oklahoma Classics edition, and the 31st edition of the State Bred Showcase is set for this Friday night, post time just after 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. 10 Oklahoma bred stakes races are featured. We really pick things up in races 3 and 4 with the Lassie and the Juvenile. An interesting 2-year-old to watch is Letta's Legacy in the Lassie Stakes for trainer C.R. Trout. She'll try to become the 3rd member of her family to win an Oklahoma Classics race, and she'll be the 6th foal out of 7 from Sundayville break to appear on Oklahoma Classics night. What a career in the broodmare shed for that one. Next up, we go to race number 7 and talk about a star broodmare who has passed the baton. She's all wolf in the distaff division, retired now. So after 3 straight years winning the Oklahoma distaff, it is open for others to come and try to take this Classics race. Who might it be? I think in the primetime pick 4, which starts in this race, you'll want to go deep. But I'll take number 4, Kachina, as my top choice. Throw out the last race on the turf. She's back on her preferred surface. Next up, the Classic Sprint in race number 8, and I've got a single in this spot for the primetime pick 4. I'm going with the local prep winner, Connor's Outlaw. This is a 3-year-old trained by Kerry Craddock, the rising star in the division. I know Flight of the Bank is the defending champion in this race, and we've seen over the years 4 different horses have won the Sprint 3 times or more in their career. But I think this 3-year-old's the rising star in the local sprint division, dominated the local prep. Take Connors Outlaw as the single in the Oklahoma Classics Sprint. Ninth and featured race on the card is the Oklahoma Classics Cup. This one, the classic, if you will, in Breeders' Cup terms. And the defending champion in this race is That's Something. He's back. Absaroka won this race a couple years ago. He's back. But I'm going with neither of those in the 6-horse field, as it's the 3-year-old Ghost Hero coming out of the Oklahoma Derby. Number 1 dude, the other one you got to watch in here. This horse for a long time has been a top Oklahoma bred since the 2-year-old season. Now age 5. Number 1 dude, 9 for 11 in the exacta at Remington Park. And finally, we'll wrap things up with the Oklahoma Classics Turf in the 10th and final race. And it's a horse trying to become a 4-time winner at the meet. Dark Afternoon, maybe the horse to beat in the finale. Don't be afraid of Donnie Von Hemel, who's won more races, 30 of them in the Oklahoma Classics than any other trainer. Nobody else has more than 15. Von Hemel sends out equally the 9 with an upset possibility. Here's a look at my primetime pick 4. All right, Jeff Siegel. So we got to look there at some of the races on Oklahoma Classics night. The Classics Cup is the feature. It's the Breeders' Cup Classic, if you will. I've got number 1 dude in there as one of the horses you've got to watch, a horse who's been consistent at Remington Park over the years. I don't know about the distance per se at the mile and a 16th, but he's awfully good. And against state-bred competition, again, I think he's going to be tough in here. I'm going against the last 2 winners of this race.
Yeah, I ended up with number 1 dude. I actually looked at Ghost Hero very closely, and I could see him win. Number 1 dude has a little faster consistently on speed figures. He is an older horse, and he also has had some success in open company. So on the basis of that, I chose number 1 dude over Ghost Hero, but they're the 2 favorites. Probably be fairly close on the tote. And I think it'll be fairly formful. So for me, it's number 1 dude over Ghost Hero, but I could certainly see Ghost Hero. He can get loose and not being pressured early. He can be tough. But I've always been a horses for courses guy. And when you look at number 1 dude, first or second, 9 out of 11 at Remington, that's hard to ignore.
Yeah, take that ATM machine if you're the owner, that's for sure. 10 times Express Bet wager rewards points when you bet on Remington Park tonight with First Bet or Express Bet. So be sure to get your wagers down, sign up for those promos, and again, get 10 times wager rewards points tonight on the full card Oklahoma Classics night at Remington Park. Okay, let's go to Gulfstream's big day of the fall meet for this time of year. It's the second leg of the Florida Sire Stakes, and we've got a stakes race wedged in the middle as well, the Gil Campbell Memorial. So we've got 3 of them to take a look for you at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. They will be races 8, 9, and 10 on the program. Second round of the Florida Sire Stakes for the fillies is the Susan's Girl. The Desert Vixen was quite a showdown with a nose finish back in September. We've got Welcome Back and Miss, the top 2 finishers from that one involved. Jeff, how about the rematch? Is it one of those 2? Is it somebody new to the series?
Well, I'm going to go with Art Harper Rose. She's much faster on speed figures than the other 2, and that's basically what I'm using as my gauge here with 2-year-olds. Art Harper Rose won both of her starts by herself. She was bet off the board in both races, which indicates to me that the Saffie Joseph trained filly is good and was supposed to be good,
right?
Based on that. Now she's going from 5.5 to 7, so there's always a little bit of a consideration as far as that goes. She's very quick. The outside draw will allow her, if it needed, to kind of look over and maybe gauge the inside speed. But I think she's probably quick enough to open up here. And now it's just a matter of whether she can go this far. And I don't see any reason why she shouldn't. She's 9 to 5 on the morning line. I'm going to assume that our Harper Rose is going to continue her winning ways.
Well, don't let your eyes fool you. Sometimes the speed figures are a vast difference. You've got an 80 for Harper Rose, 54 in the winning figure for the Desert Vixen Stakes. So again, let your eyes be the guide. This looked awfully impressive last time.
Our Harper Rose confidently handled a 1/4 mile from home and 5 on top. Avellino with Faze, Rhonda Cares on the far outside. She has classes at the rails. They swing for home. Our Harper Rose went 45-1 for the opening half mile, and she hasn't taken a deep breath yet. She's 1/8 of a mile out and well clear. It's on to the Florida Sire Stakes Series for our Harper Rose. The daughter of Kozan, impressive again in today. She won it by 8 without ever being asked.
Jeff, I love it. You and I like to tell people where to run their horses in our various podcasts. Pete Aiello at the 16th pole of that allowance race was already calling the next start. It's on to the Florida Sire Stakes Series. So that was pretty obvious.
We are really good at doing that, by the way. And by the way, we may not make the right decision, but we generally are right where they end up going because common sense usually wins out. Not all the time, but this was this filly back in late September won this race. This was the logical next step, month in between races by Kozan. They gave some money for her in the 2-year-old in training sale, and one thing I looked at when trying to figure out whether or not she would be able to get the extra furlong and a half without much issue is the fact that she switched leads beautifully coming off that turn. Mm-hmm. Whenever you see any horse, and we'll talk about this a little later on, a horse hanging on their left lead, even though they're maybe way in front, it always is problematic for me. It's pretty hard to extend your distance limit, your capabilities if you don't change leads. And our Harper Rose did it, in stride, and she did it on cue. I don't think the extra distance is going to bother her at all.
For more on the Susan's Girl, be sure to check out our Meet the Contenders blog at news.first.com and on the Express Bet blog section as well. Got more on each of the contenders in that race. Up next, race number 9 at Gulfstream, a 1-turn mile. It's the Gil Campbell Memorial. Of course, Gil Campbell, the proprietor of Stonehenge Farm for many years, Blazing Sword, some great horses down the line. Dean Delivers carries those colors and the legacy at Gil Campbell. It'll be one of those not a dry eye in the house moments if they're presented in the winner's circle. And it would be no surprise at all, Jeff. Dean Delivers looks pretty stout in this particular spot coming out of those big races in graded company.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that I look for, and he should, is that you're looking at a state-bred type of race or a race that basically has Florida-bred horses in it, and Dean Delivers it really is a horse that's capable of competing outside the comfort zone of that. He was third in the Vanderbilt last time out behind Elite Power and Gunite. I don't think there's anybody quite that good in this race. Right. and he was quick enough to make the lead there. And even though he got run over and got beat 6 lengths, he's still in a strong buyer speed figure, as he did when he won the Smile Sprint Stakes at Gulfstream Park 2 races back. Now it's just a question of whether or not he can get the mile. And while he hasn't won at a mile, he has run some good races at a mile against, again, tougher open company. But his race 2 races back in the Smile earned a career top 99 buyer number. And if he runs back to that race here, and I think he might be capable, Dean Delivers should be able to outfoot this field.
Let's see him in action in those deep green silks of Stonehenge Farm.
Through the opening quarter of 21 4.5 mile and 44 1. Dean Delivers off the turn with a 2-length lead. Todofino is second down the center and big and classy. There's an 1/8 of a mile to go. Dean Delivers still rolling on the top end. Todofino has dropped anchor late as Dean Delivers is pure speed, and he's a Smile Sprint winner. Dean Delivers will deliver indeed for Stonehenge LLC. Gate to wire to win the Smile.
For an exacta in that race. I like the horse coming out of the 2-turn race back to 1-turn Octane. I think this horse can run and hit the board 12-1 in the morning line, so could be live underneath there, but you've got to beat Dean Delivers. Dean Delivers over Octane, the exacta that I'll go for in race number 9 at Gulfstream Park. All right, let's go to the co-featured race on the Florida Sire Stakes Series, round number 2. It's the Affirmed Division. This stretches the 2-year-olds out to 7 furlongs. First leg of the series was the Dr. Feger, won by Ben Tornado. Ben Tornado romped by 7.5 lengths in that one. We've got a tougher field this time around because you've got Mattingly, a stakes winner in the Hollywood Beach Stakes, and some other competition stepping up in here. Jeff, Ben Tornado is the early season top dog in Florida right now, but as they develop a little bit more and they stretch out the 7 furlongs, can he be beaten on Saturday?
I picked against him, although if you look at his form, he's good, obviously. He's undefeated. Both of his last 2 races, he kind of drew off, which indicates he should like the extra furlong or handle it anyway. Numbers-wise, he's very strong. The buyer numbers are very, very strong. I looked at him on paper and said, okay, I think I'll probably default to him. He looks like the logical colt to beat. Went back and watched the video of his last race, and I don't know. I was left with the impression that I'm not really sure he's going to improve as the distances increase. He's a fast horse, but I don't think he's been beating a whole lot.
Right.
But so I'm a little bit, I don't know, careful about him.
Sure.
I could be wrong. He could still wire the field. Then I went back and watched Hurricane Nelson's maiden races. First one at Saratoga, and then his most recent start when he was beaten at even money. But that colt who beat him is a good colt, Private Desire. You can see he was 11 lengths clear of everybody else. He's actually faster on numbers than Bentonato. And Hurricane Nelson's a very good athlete. He's a very good mover, switches leads, just looks like a racehorse to me. And although he's a maiden here, I don't think he'd be here unless Christophe Clement had the confidence that he would be competitive here. I also like the fact that he's drawn outside of Bentonato. Hurricane Nelson strikes me as a colt that can stalk and pounce. He doesn't have to be busting out there and going. And I do think he's going to get a great trip. And he's going to be a better price. So I'm gonna go with Hurricane Nelson here to beat Bentonato in what looks to be a much stronger than average version of the Affirm Stakes.
Yeah, and when you look and you try to figure out if one of these 2-year-olds is going to go longer, again, visual clues in watching their replays. This is where some gallop outs might come into it. How did the horse finish through the wire and past? And also for me, it's a lot about the dam side pedigree. I think that's where the stamina comes. And when we talk about Bentornato, he's out of a Put It Back mare. Put It Back was a sprinter. I mean, a pure sprinter. So, when we get to a mile to 16th in the final leg of the Florida Sire Stakes series, then you might definitely be against a runner like that who's out of a Put It Back mare. At 7 furlongs, you're crossing your fingers at this point, right? This is the crossroads. This is probably the limit of what you're going to see at the peak for Bentornato. But are you going to take a short price to find out? And you've got some other good options. I'm with you in here. I think that horse obviously could win, but I think Hurricane Nelson might be the better play in here. But with that 91 buyer, Clement coming in from New York, I'm not sure how the tote board's going to play here. The simulcast audience nationally might be on Hurricane Nelson in here as well. And then somebody could look back and say it was 40 cents on the dollar on Bentornato last time and he won by 7. How in the world did we get 9-5 on him in this particular spot the next time, because they bet the other horse? So curious tote board watching coming up. I think the one thing you can't do, though, is play the 2 of them in an exacta. I mean, that's going to be short beans right there. So try to find yourself a price underneath. That's what I did in the Express Bet Race of the Week. So check out that analysis. Sign up for the email newsletter at expressbet.com or news.first.com, and also check out in the blog section. So I tried to get a price and get cute underneath, but for me, one of those 2 almost seems like a destined winner of the Florida Sire Stakes Affirm division. Let's go back to our schedule as we shift gears from Gulfstream Park. After a trio of handicapping stakes races, we go to the Santa Anita card on Saturday. It's the Enokia Stakes. These are 2-year-old sprint fillies going 6 furlongs, $85,000 the purse. Dua's been the workmaid in the morning for a couple Big Bob Baffert runners. And I thought maybe she had the heart ripped out of her in the morning, and she came back in the Chandelier Stakes and ran decently, Jeff, but she didn't have the finish in that at a mile to 16th. You think the return to sprinting here at 6 furlongs serves her well, and certainly a drop in class out of the Chandelier?
I think so. My initial goal here was to try to find something to beat her. Ended up picking her anyway. She breezed really well the other day. This was just 5 days ago, and she looked like she came out of the Chandelier in good fashion. I mean, she looks like a happy filly here, bouncing through the lane, not being asked at all. Just an easy breeze. She looked good, I thought. I mean, it's not the final time means anything. It's the fact that she's straight and true and galloping through the lane and ears up and going easy. That's a good move for me. You don't have to go fast to look good.
Right.
She looked good there. Back sprinting. I know she's won sprinting. And so I think she's probably the right one. Now, I tried to make a case for Becky's Dream because she's coming back. She was a very precocious 2-year-old when trained by Hector Palma. Jose Valdez is the assistant to Hector serving a suspension. So that it's the same barn, really.
Right.
And, she won her debut nicely in her first start. I don't think she beat anybody that day in retrospect. Then she comes back and she gets worn down in a stake race. That was sort of decent, I guess. Right. But visually, I went back and watched the video of her last race and actually both races. And in both cases, again, this is a pet peeve of mine. She does not change leads. And I mean, she got worn. She's been 5/8. Now she's going 3/4. Unfortunately, I don't have any video on the workout, so I can't really tell at this stage if she's a changed filly or if she's grown up at all. I like the outside box. And then you've got another filly in here who's pretty quick, the rail horse Sandy Bottom. So I don't know. This is a treacherous race for me when you're talking about 6-5 on Dua. Again, it would probably be safe to pick her in a sense that, well, she's grade 2 placed and this and that and all that. But I don't know whether this is a gambling race for me. I'll put her on top, but I've seen better 6-5. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, just the shortening up. Are they just trying to get a black type win on her pedigree page at this point? Because she's run well in graded stakes races, and to drop all the way back to 6 furlongs. Curious spot for Dua in here. We'll see how she fares in the Anokia Stakes. That's Saturday's feature at Santa Anita. Let's go to the Keeneland card on Saturday first up, and then we'll look at a Sunday Stakes as we go through the final 3 handicapping chores of the weekend for us, the Perryville and Raven Run on Saturday's card. Just a reminder, as our podcast streams live, if you haven't seen Keeneland today, they are off the turf, rainy conditions. So 2 main track stakes races on Saturday. We've got the turf stakes coming up on Sunday, but no turf racing today at Keeneland on a card that got hit pretty hard by scratches. So, Jeff, let's talk about this Saturday co-featured 3-year-old sprints, one for the Colts, one for the fillies. The Colts go up first in race number 6, and I got to say, this Perryville Stakes, $250,000 listed race, came up much stronger than I anticipated in here. It's not the deepest field in terms of numbers, just 6 in here, but when you got verifying runner-up in the grade 1 Jerkins last time, coming back in a listed stakes, you've got Ray's Kane, who's been graded stakes performer throughout the course of the year and cashing checks in that. Confidence Game, the horse who won the grade 2 Rebel Stakes earlier this year. And then up and comers like Dr. Venkman and Post Time in this race. I was all set to pick Post Time. I love this horse. I loved him in Maryland last year. I love this comeback at Pimlico. If you go back and watch this race for Post Time at Pimlico, you would just think he jumped in the race at the 16th pole and just coasted home. I mean, just effortless last time in beating older horses. And then I looked at the race, and verifying got to be Lone Speed. How in the world are you Lone Speed in a 7-furlong stakes race? But there's no speed in this race. I don't know how they're going to catch verifying. As much as a Post Time, I know Lone Speed's the most dangerous thing in all of racing.
Well, he's even money on the morning line for a reason. Again, second in a grade 1 race, versatile horse who can route or sprint in a pace scenario that looks favorable to him. But I'm going to go with the California shippy here, Dr. Venkman. I was there for both of his races at Del Mar. First time out, he didn't break. I liked him that day. I thought 4-1 was a gift, and then he didn't break at all. And then all of a sudden, he rushes up into within range, and I'm figuring, okay, well, that's great, but he's going to get spent a little bit just getting to where he had to be. But he just kept coming. And then he wins off by himself and earns a powerful 91 Beyer number. Now, I was impressed with that win. Everybody else was too, because he comes up in the numbers of 2, and he's 2-5 in a 9-horse field. I mean, that's like, okay, this race is over before it even starts. Right. And you know something? It was, because he did it again, the same thing. And he looks like a horse. He's a prototype elongated sprinter where he has enough speed to lay close, but he just powers home. He's been 6.5. He's been 7. And I think if the more experience he gets, I think the more early speed he may show if he's allowed to do it. And in a pace situation that's going to allow him to sit fairly close without having to be used in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to be the horse that has to hold him off from the quarter pole to the wire, whether it's verifying or anybody else. Right. He's 7-2 in the morning line. He's got a bullet work at Santa Anita. And I got to hand it to Keeneland. I look at their stake schedule, and they have a knack for riding stakes races for horses that will show up because Breeders' Cup doesn't have a race for them, or there's a division. I mean, this is one of the reasons why this race is so good, is because if it's not here, where is Dr. Venkman going to run? He's not going to run in the Breeders' Cup. He's a 3-year-old. He's going to have to run against older horses. But here's a horse that can ship to California for some serious money and have a right to be there. And I think Dr. Venkman is – to me, he looks like a Malibu type horse. I really believe that. And if he wins this race, that'll be his next stop. And if Mark Klatt isn't aware of that, we'll tell him to do that.
There we go again.
Exactly. So, and by the way, Mark Klatt's a terrific trainer. And unlike some trainers out here in California who tend to take shots, Mark Glatt doesn't take shots.
Mm-hmm.
He runs them where they can win, and if he doesn't think he can win, he's not taking a shot. Especially with the gelding, there's no reason to do that. Mm-hmm. So I like Dr. Venkman. At 7-2, I'm gambling on him.
He's not running a stakes yet, so fans may not have seen him. Let's give him that opportunity now. Here's his allowance win at Del Mar last out.
To battle as one out. Phineas on the outside. Dr. Venkman now taking the lead, though, and kicking on for home. It's Dr. Venkman, 3 parts of a length. Phineas has run a very brave one, but he's no match for Dr. Venkman. Dr. Venkman and Juan Hernandez, very impressive. Scintillating win, in fact. They win impressively. Big run from Phineas in second, and in behind those two came Hot Rod Rumble.
About in there because there was plenty left in the tank after that race. And Dr. Venkman, that was allowance company. But as you see, like this time of year and maybe even like a month earlier, when you start to see these 3-year-olds beat elder allowance horses, and then they come back in against straight 3-year-olds like the conditions of this race are, it's not the class rise that you think it is on paper going from an allowance to a stakes race, because if you've taken on elder horses, you've done something that a lot of the 3-year-olds haven't at this point. So a good trade-off there when you're trying to evaluate class in the handicapping game. All right, let's go to the 9th, the Lexus Raven Run, 350,000 on the line in this one. Grade 2 company. This race has had some success in producing horses towards the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Yes, they've wheeled back quickly on 2 weeks rest in the past. Shamrock Rose did it a couple years ago. We could see a Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint out of this field, Jeff. It's not out of the question. And we've got some fillies of that kind of ilk. When you look at Vava and Alva Star and Dazzling Blue, there's a trio of really good ones in this one. How'd you see the Raven Run shaking out?
See, there's another situation where you've got a really good race here. It's a grade 2, 350, and you've got 3-year-old fillies, some of whom are not quite up to running against the older mares in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, although maybe they are. We'll find out what happens here. But that's why it attracts 9 fillies. That's why this is a good race. You look at the stake schedule for Keeneland and you see races like this, and if you're around the country, you're saying, something, that's where I should be. Yeah. And that's where these are. Alva Star has come through the ranks, and I love this pattern. You very rarely see this through 5 starts. Sometimes you see it through the first 2 or 3, and then the going gets a little tougher, and sometimes the fillies go backwards. But Alva Star has never gone backwards. Every race she has run with regards to buyer speed figures, she has gotten faster. She's gone from 56 to 79 to 86 to 96 to 98 in the Prioris. And 98, without Echo Star in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, that's not that far removed from what it's going to take to win that race. And I don't know whether they'd want to come back this quick, but it's possible that they will. And Alva Star, who just tow roped the field in the Prioris, and has actually since then breezed 58 flat at Keeneland. I think she's doing well. I'm going to come to that conclusion. I don't see any reason why she can't win again, especially with the style that she employs, where she's speed out of the gate and then re-breaks. How do you beat a sprinter like that?
Well, she re-broke last time out at Saratoga. Let's go back and take a look.
Dazzling Blue, a length and a half behind, and asks for much more than she's giving now. Alva Star pours it on, coming to the furlong pole as Jersey Pearl moves into second, and Dazzling Blue is third. It's all Alva Star. Alva Star in a sparkling performance streaks home by 8 widening lengths to take the Prioris.
Effort again will make her very, very tough to beat. Vava's no slouch. She won the Charlestown Oaks last time. That's the 2-turn 7 furlong race there at Charlestown, but she's got plenty good 1-turn form in previous starts for Cherie DeVoe, and she's fast on numbers as well. John Velasquez had a very good opening week in stakes company at Keeneland. We'll see if he continues his stakes run on that daughter of Gunrunner. Would be no surprise. Dazzling Blue's got to do more than she did when she was the well-beaten favorite in that race at Saratoga. Saratoga last time out when she was bet to 65 cents on the dollar. It's going to flip on the tote board this time. Alva Star is going to take the money of those two in the rematch, to be sure. Nice addition of the Lexus Raven Run, race number 9 on the card Saturday at Keeneland. And that 9th race is part of the late pick 4 at Keeneland. Remember, when you bet the late pick 4 any day of the Keeneland meet with First Bet or Express Bet, there's a $2,000 late pick 4 hit and split. So you get your pari-mutuel earnings in the late pick 4, and then you split $2,000 in additional money with just other players at First Bet and Express Bet who also hit the pick 4. So added winnings, you can never take enough, or you can never get enough of those. Take all that you can get. Now, Sunday at Keeneland, the feature race, we go from sprinters on Saturday in the spotlight to turf marathoners on Sunday. The Dowager Stakes at 1.5 miles on the grass is the featured event on Sunday. Jeff, where are we looking in this one?
I went with Vergara. She won a stakes at Kentucky Downs. She was visually pleasing in that race. Mm-hmm. She's got good tactical speed, and these marathon races are often made to order for fillies or colts or whoever that can lay fairly close because they don't are not impacted by any kind of false pace. 2 races back in the Glens Falls on McCulloch and Warlike Goddess. Again, those are tougher than what she's seeing here. Brave in victory in her last start. Doesn't need to lead the win, but will be in the fray every step of the way. Noble Mission, of course, the sire, a full brother to Frankel, and he can get fillies that can stay and can develop. And Graham Motion's given her plenty of time off, or enough time off, early September now into the 3rd week of October. So she should have been recovered. What would have had to be a fairly taxing effort. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason why she can't win again. She's the 9-5. I believe she's the 9-5 morning line favorite. To me, Vergara wins again. Lightly raced, developing, and should be able to score right back.
Noble Mission, you mentioned the sire's got really good numbers, but it's all spring on the Keeneland turf. That's a good handicapping angle there. And so while she's not run at Keeneland yet in her career, she's got the pedigree to take to it and shouldn't be any situation there that's over her head. Transient's one to keep an eye on here as well, because we're talking about the 1.5 mile distance. This horse is just endurance on endurance by Sea the Stars. So I love to go for the pedigrees when we get to these 1.5 mile races and try to get some class and stamina about them. I think Transient for E5 Racing and Safi Joseph, a major player in this particular spot. Second to Vergara last time at Kentucky Downs. Let's watch those two run 1-2 last out in Franklin, Kentucky.
And now Vergara put to a drive as they arrive into the final furlong. Sinfilt is in between horses. Transient is there on the outside. It is Vergara trying to last. She's got the lead close to home. From Transient and Sinfilt, they're coming to the wire, and Vergara does it.
They get the rematch. They go from Kentucky Downs to Keeneland. It's, not that far of a drive by car, a couple hours, but the distance or the difference in turf courses are miles and miles apart on how the trip may play out. So let's see how they react in the rematch when they meet at Keeneland on a more traditional type American turf course. So that's going to wrap up our 8 handicapping exercises for this particular weekend. We've got Kipco British Champions Day Saturday morning from Royal Ascot. So be sure to check in early on your First Bet and Express Bet account. Champions Day morning has a $10 money back special on every race on the card at Ascot. So if you bet win bets up to $10 will be refunded if your win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd in any of the races. So be sure to take advantage of that. That same $10 money back special on Saturday applies to Gulfstream Park's 3 stakes races. So be sure to look at the races we looked at, races 8, 9, and 10 on this show, again, to take advantage of that money back special offer. A lot going on, Jeff, worldwide from Oklahoma to Ascot and everywhere in between. A fun weekend on the calendar that could be a dead pocket with the Breeders' Cup looming, but it turned out to be pretty darn good.
Yeah, I give the some of these tracks like Gulfstream and certainly Oklahoma, Remington, to find this spot in the calendar where they can kind of rule the roost. And I think that it still offers good gambling for everybody who's kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen with the Breeders' Cup. Important workouts this weekend for sure. You're going to get some serious drills. So we'll be watching that and reporting on that next Tuesday on our It's Official. I did a lot of work this weekend on Breeders' Cup, and I came up with some revelations for me. We'll talk about that as well. Right. Yeah, no, there are things that I had not realized or seen that, especially with the Europeans and watching all the videos, I'm excited. I'm excited
Nice.
for this weekend for sure, but 2 weeks and counting, and I'm going to be prepared. I promise you that.
Rain in Kentucky moved a bunch of workouts up to yesterday morning. Todd Pletcher had a dozen horses potentially for the Breeders' Cup up to the mark and others working. And it was good to see Up to the Mark back on the work tab so fast after winning that Coolmore Turf Mile. That's a great sign for a horse who had been laid off and won. And you're like, is there a bounce imminent? And he's right back on the work tab.
Right.
Now, some bad news out of the Pletcher camp. Forte retired yesterday. Just kind of hit on that at the end. He just had a star-crossed 3-year-old year, right? I mean, he did the foot problems kind of started in the spring and resurfaced here again in the fall. And no Derby start, no no Preakness start, and no Breeders' Cup Classic start. No matter what is said of Forte in 2023, that alone makes it a disappointment that he wasn't able to be at his best on the biggest days. But the calendar's not kind in horse racing when it comes to the Triple Crown and it comes to the Breeders' Cup. They make the dates, you don't. And that's part of what makes championship horses is they hit the dates.
No foot, no horse is what they say. And horses with bad feet, as he's had with the quarter cracks, that's something that you can't ignore. You'd like to ignore it. Run him anyway. You can't do that, And so he's going to be retired. And I figure that they figured it probably was going to be a chronic thing, and we could keep him in training at 4 and patch him up, but that wasn't going to work. So no Forte. I've been going over the workouts and the workout patterns for the Breeders' Cup, and something came across that I noticed that was a little disturbing, because this was a colt that I wanted to give a big chance to in the Classic. That's Go Rocket Ride. And nothing's been written about this, but I have noticed he hasn't worked in 2 weeks. And when he had a work, unless they missed him, but I don't think that was the case.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to see if he works this week, and he better, because this is a colt that I think has got a legitimate chance. He was a very good second in the Pacific Classic, developing 3-year-old son of Candy Ride. And again, looking back at the workouts and noticing that he did not work last week. We'll see what happens this week. It's I'm worried because I like it, and we'll see. Right. But there are others that we'll be watching this week. Again, 2 weeks out when they kind of tighten the screws, and we'll see what happens this week. And we'll talk about that next Tuesday.
All right. We'll be back on Tuesday with the It's Official podcast. Between now and then, enjoy Oklahoma Classics, Champions Day at Ascot, and everything in between as the Florida Sire Stakes kick up their heels for round number 2 Saturday at Gulfstream Park. On behalf of everybody with First Racing and my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great weekend. See you Tuesday.